Crimson splattered his custom Tom Ford suit, yet Dante ignored the ruined silk lapels. Dropping heavily to the freezing marble floor, he stared up at the beautiful woman society insisted was too heavy to love. This wasn't some fractured fairy tale. It was a brutal, orchestrated mafia takeover. Champagne glasses clinked against heavy crystal under the dim, gold-leafed lights of the Onyx Room, Manhattan's most heavily guarded underground speakeasy. Harper Miller stood near the edge of the chandelier's glow, clutching a glass of sparkling water. She was 28, a brilliant forensic accountant who operated out of a nondescript brick building in Astoria, Queens. She was also a size 20. In a room overflowing with surgically enhanced supermodels and dangerously thin heiresses dangling off the arms of New York's most lethal organized crime figures, Harper stood out. She wasn't meant to be in the spotlight. Her invitation to this gala, a veiled summit for the city's underground syndicates, was purely functional. She had just saved the Falcone family millions by burying an IRS audit beneath layers of shell companies registered in Belize and the Cayman Islands. Tonight, she had dared to feel beautiful. Harper wore a custom crimson silk gown that hugged her heavy curves, the deep V-neck showcasing her soft, full chest, while the strategic draping accentuated her wide hips and thick thighs. She had spent 2 hours in hair and makeup, letting herself believe just for one evening that she belonged in this world of glitz and shadows. That illusion shattered the moment Tristan Falcone approached her. Tristan was the youngest son of the Falcone empire, a 25-year-old mid-level enforcer with a cocaine habit and an ego inflated by his father's money. He smelled heavily of expensive gin and cheap intentions as he cornered Harper near the ice sculpture. Well, well, if it isn't the human calculator. Tristan slurred his eyes, dragging up and down her body with naked disgust. He leaned in close, ensuring the surrounding crowd capos, politicians, and socialites could hear him. I heard my father invited you to the VIP tables. Tell me, Harper, did you break the reinforced chairs in the back room? Yet Harper felt the blood drain from her face. The lively chatter in their immediate radius died down. Eyes turned towards them. I'm just here to enjoy the evening, Tristan, Harper said, keeping her voice incredibly steady despite the violent trembling in her hands. Excuse me. She tried to step around him, but Tristan threw a heavy arm against the wall, blocking her path. His friends, a pack of sycophantic heirs in tailored suits, snickered behind him. Don't run away. We're just trying to figure out why a whale swam into a shark tank, Tristan mocked loudly. You actually dressed up. Look at this silk. It's like wrapping a tarp over a broken-down minivan. Move, Tristan, Harper warned, her voice dropping. The sting in her chest was familiar. It was the same venom she had endured her whole life, the constant societal reminder that her brilliant mind didn't matter because her body took up too much space. Tristan laughed a cruel, sharp sound. He leaned in his whiskey-soaked breath, fanning across her face. You think because you saved my father some money, you're one of us. Look around, sweetheart. Look at the women here. You're a glorified bookkeeper. Know your place. Don't dress up like you're meant to be desired. No one wants a fat girl. He sneered the final words, letting them hang in the heavy air. A tear pricked the corner of Harper's eye, but she refused to let it fall. She lifted her chin, preparing to push past him and walk out the front door, abandoning her career with the Falcones forever. Before she could move, the atmosphere in the room abruptly shifted. The temperature seemed to plummet. The snickering from Tristan's friends ceased, instantly replaced by a suffocating, terrified silence. From the velvet-draped VIP balcony, above heavy, deliberate footsteps, descended the grand mahogany staircase. Dante Moretti. At 34, Dante was the undisputed Don of the Moretti Syndicate. His family controlled the docks in New Jersey, the high-end real estate developments in Manhattan, and half the judges in the state. He was a towering figure, broad-shouldered and lethal, with raven-dark hair and eyes the color of a winter storm. He wore a bespoke charcoal suit that screamed quiet, violent money. Dante rarely spoke in public. He didn't have to. The crowd parted for him, like the Red Sea. Tristan dropped his arm, suddenly looking very small, his arrogant sneer melting into a pale mask of sheer panic. Dante didn't look at Tristan. His piercing, storm-grey eyes were locked entirely on Harper. He stepped directly in front of her, invading her personal space. But unlike Tristan, his presence didn't feel like a threat. It felt like an eclipse. Dante slowly raised a large, scarred hand and gently brushed a stray lock of hair behind Harper's ear. His knuckles grazed her soft, flushed cheek. "Crimson," Dante murmured, his voice, a deep, gravelly baritone that sent a violent shiver down Harper's spine. "It suits you. You eclipse every woman in this room." Harper stopped breathing. She stared up at him, bewildered. "Mr. Moretti." "Dante." He corrected softly, his thumb tracing the line of her jaw. He finally turned his head, his gaze shifting to Tristan. The warmth in his eyes vanished, replaced by a cold, murderous intent. "Tristan," Dante said quietly. The silence in the club was so absolute that the ice shifting in a glass sounded like a gunshot. "Did I just hear you disrespect my future wife?" The entire room gasped. Harper's eyes widened to the size of saucers. She had never spoken to Dante Moretti in her life. Tristan stammered, backing up a step. You're Don Moretti. I was just joking with her. She's my father's accountant. She is a goddess." Dante interrupted his voice, dropping to a dangerous whisper. "And you just spoke to her like she was dirt beneath your cheap Italian loafers." "I didn't know," Tristan pleaded, raising his hands. "I swear to God, Dante, I didn't know she was with you." "Apologize to her," Dante commanded. "I'm sorry, Harper. Truly, Not from up there," Dante said. Tristan blinked, confused. "What?" Dante's hand moved in a blur. He grabbed Tristan by the lapels of his suit and swept his leg out. Tristan crashed hard onto the marble floor. Before the young Falcone could scramble up, Dante's heavy leather shoe planted firmly on the center of Tristan's chest, pinning him to the ground. "I said apologize," Dante repeated coldly. "On your knees." To her. Tristan, humiliated and trembling, rolled onto his knees, ignoring the shocked stares of his peers. He looked up at Harper, his previous arrogance entirely crushed. "I am sorry, Harper. I was out of line." Dante looked down at Harper, his expression softening. "Is his apology acceptable?" "Mia bella." Harper, completely stunned, managed a small nod. "Yes." Dante removed his foot from Tristan. "Get out of my sight before I decide your father has one too many sons." Tristan scrambled to his feet and sprinted for the exit, his friends trailing frantically behind him. Dante turned back to Harper, offering his arm. "I believe you were just leaving," Dante said smoothly. "Allow me to escort you home." The ride to Astoria was conducted in the back of a bulletproof Maybach. Rain lashed against the tinted windows, blurring the neon lights of the city. Harper sat stiffly against the plush leather, acutely aware of the massive man sitting mere inches away from her. The scent of cedar, expensive tobacco and rain clung to him. "You didn't have to do that," Harper finally said, breaking the heavy silence. She stared straight ahead at the privacy partition, separating them from the driver. "Do what?" Dante asked, pouring 2 fingers of amber liquid from a hidden crystal decanter. He offered the glass to her, but she shook her head. "Claim I was your your future wife. Humiliate a made man in front of the 5 families just to save me from some cruel comments. Now the Falcones will think I'm a spy, and your people will think you've lost your mind." Dante took a slow sip of his drink, his eyes never leaving her profile. "I don't do anything just for show, Harper, and no one in my syndicate questions my mind." She finally turned to look at him, her defenses flaring up. She was used to being the smartest person in the room, but she was out of her depth here. "Then why you don't know me? You've never spoken to me. Men like you don't look twice at women like me, unless there's an angle. So tell me the angle, Mr. Moretti." Dante chuckled a dark, rich sound. "You think highly of my strategic mind, but poorly of my taste in women. I've been watching you for 6 months, Harper." Harper froze. "Watching me?" "You rebuilt the Falcone family's entire offshore network. You caught a $3 million skimming operation that their own underboss missed. You are ruthless with numbers completely unflappable under pressure, and you have the most magnificent body I have ever laid eyes on." Harper felt a hot flush creep up her neck. "Stop. Please don't patronize me. I know what I look like." "Yes," Dante said, his voice dropping low, shifting closer so his knee brushed against her thigh. "You look like a woman built to be worshipped. Soft, generous, absolute perfection. Tristan is a blind, pathetic boy. I am a man, and I know exactly what I want." He didn't touch her, but his gaze felt like a physical caress, tracing the curve of her waist, the swell of her hips, the fullness of her face. For the first time in her life, Harper didn't feel the urge to cross her arms and hide her stomach. She felt a strange, intoxicating heat blooming in her chest. "So," Harper whispered, struggling to keep her voice professional, "what happens now?" "Tomorrow morning you are going to resign from the Falcone Syndicate," Dante said, setting his glass aside. "You will pack up your office at Miller and Associates. I have already secured a floor in the Chrysler building under a dummy corporation. You will work for me. And if I say no," Dante smiled, a predatory gleam in his eye, "you won't, because you're bored with the Falcones. They are sloppy, and because you are curious to see if a monster like me can actually treat a queen the way she deserves." The Maybach pulled up to her modest apartment building. Dante stepped out first, holding the umbrella over her as she exited. He didn't try to kiss her. He simply took her hand, brought her knuckles to his lips, and pressed a lingering kiss to her skin. "Good night, Harper. I will see you tomorrow at 10. The next morning, true to his word, Dante's men arrived. Harper, driven by a mixture of adrenaline and a reckless desire for change, had sent her resignation email to the Falcone family. Within hours, she was sitting behind a massive oak desk in a sprawling corner office overlooking Manhattan. It was there that the real depth of Dante's obsession and his ruthlessness came to light. For 3 weeks, Harper buried herself in the Moretti ledgers. They were pristine, terrifyingly vast and highly complex. She saw the flow of illicit money moving through art galleries, high-end casinos and shipping containers. And every day Dante was there. He didn't just employ her, he courted her with a fierce, relentless intensity. He brought her lunch from the city's most exclusive bistros. When she mentioned a stiff neck from staring at spreadsheets, a world-renowned massage therapist was put on the company payroll the next day. He never made her feel conscious of her size. When they attended private dinners, he ordered rich, decadent food and watched her eat with an expression of pure, unadulterated hunger that had nothing to do with the meal. He touched her constantly, a hand on her lower back, a thumb tracing her knuckles, while they reviewed accounts, pulling her onto his lap during late-night meetings, telling her how perfectly she fit against him, how he loved the softness of her thighs and the weight of her in his arms. Harper's lifelong insecurities began to crack, replaced by a fierce, protective loyalty to the dangerous Don. But the fairy tale had a dark underbelly. Harper was a forensic accountant, and she couldn't turn off her brain. During her 4th week digging through a subsidiary shipping company's books, she found a series of heavily encrypted wire transfers. They were routed through a shell company in Panama, draining funds directly from a Moretti-controlled casino in Atlantic City. Someone was stealing from Dante. She tracked the IP addresses, unraveling the digital thread over 48 hours of no sleep. When she finally cracked the final layer of the shell company's ownership, the name on the account made her blood run cold. Tristan Falcone. Tristan wasn't just arrogant, he was incredibly stupid. He had been using Falcone family hackers to siphon money from Dante Moretti to feed his gambling and cocaine debts. Harper slammed her laptop shut. The implications were catastrophic. If Dante found out, it would mean open war between the Morettis and the Falcones. Blood would spill in the streets. But if she hid it, she would be betraying the man who had treated her like a goddess. The heavy mahogany door to her office clicked open. Dante walked in, wearing his usual impeccably tailored suit, carrying a box of artisan pastries from a bakery in Little Italy. He stopped, instantly reading the tension vibrating off her body. "What is it, Harper?" he asked, his voice losing its usual warmth, slipping into the cold, calculating tone of a mafia boss. Harper stood up, her heart hammering against her ribs. She walked around the desk, clutching a printed folder of the offshore routing numbers. "Dante," she started, her voice shaking slightly. "Before I show you this, you have to promise me you won't react on impulse." Dante set the box down. He crossed the room, gripping her soft waist, pulling her flush against his hard body. "I never react on impulse, mia cara." "Tell me." She handed him the folder. "It's Tristan Falcone. He's been stealing from the Atlantic City casino. Nearly $4 million over the past 8 months. Dante took the folder. He didn't shout. He didn't break anything. He just stared at the numbers, his jaw ticking once. Then, slowly, a terrifying, dark smile spread across his face. "I know," Dante whispered. Harper gasped, pulling back slightly. "You know, how could you know?" Dante reached out, gently cupping her full cheek. "Because I left the back door open for him, Harper. I knew he was in debt to the triads. I knew he was desperate. I laid the bait and the stupid boy took it." "But why?" Dante's eyes darkened, dropping to her lips before meeting her gaze again. "Because a month ago he stood in a room full of people and told the woman I love that no one wanted her. I told him to apologize on his knees, but I realized that wasn't enough." Harper's breath hitched. "The woman I love. I didn't just want him embarrassed," Dante continued, his thumb brushing over her bottom lip. "I want him destroyed. I want his family to owe me his life. And I wanted you to be the one to find the evidence, so you hold the key to his absolute ruin." Before Harper could process the magnitude of his words, Dante's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and the ruthless smile returned. "They have him," Dante said softly. "Come with me, Harper. It's time to collect our debts." Heavy droplets of freezing rain battered the armored windshield of Dante's blacked-out Mercedes G-Wagon as it tore through the slick, empty streets of Lower Manhattan. Harper sat in the passenger seat, her pulse hammering a frantic, deafening rhythm against her eardrums. She gripped the leather armrest, her knuckles white, her mind racing faster than the V8 engine roaring beneath them. Dante drove with one hand, casually draped over the steering wheel, his expression an impenetrable mask of cold, predatory calm. They arrived at an abandoned shipping warehouse on the edge of the Hudson River. The imposing structure was a decaying monument to the city's industrial past, reeking of salt rust and damp concrete. Armed men dressed in tactical black tactical gear flanked the heavy corrugated metal doors. They nodded respectfully as Dante approached, immediately pulling the heavy steel open. Dante placed a warm, reassuring hand on the small of Harper's back, guiding her into the cavernous, dimly lit space. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of motor oil and raw fear. Suspended by his wrists from a heavy industrial chain hanging from the rafters was Tristan Falcone. His custom designer suit was torn and stained with sweat. His face, previously a mask of aristocratic arrogance, was bruised and swollen. Standing beside him was Dominic Dante's most trusted enforcer, calmly cleaning his fingernails with a hunting knife. Tristan's head snapped up at the sound of their approaching footsteps. When his bloodshot eyes landed on Harper, standing beside the most feared syndicate leader on the East Coast, his face drained of whatever color remained. "Dante!" Tristan gasped, his voice a pathetic rattling wheeze. "Dante, please. We can make a deal. My father will pay you back. Double, triple, just let me go down. Please!" Dante didn't answer immediately. He walked to a metal folding table, picked up a pristine white linen cloth, and meticulously wiped a speck of dust from his Rolex. "Your father does not know you are here, Tristan," Dante said smoothly, his voice echoing in the cavernous room. "Carmine thinks you are currently enjoying a private suite at the Bellagio in Las Vegas. He has no idea his youngest son is a common thief who steals from his allies to pay off his gambling debts." "I was desperate," Tristan cried out, thrashing against the heavy chains. "The triads were going to kill me. I had to take the casino money. I knew you had enough. You wouldn't miss it." "It was never about the money," Dante replied, his voice dropping to a dangerous, icy register. He turned and gestured toward Harper. "It was about respect. You looked at my queen, the woman who single-handedly saved your family's empire from federal ruin, and you treated her like garbage. You told her she was worthless. You insulted her body. You insulted her mind. And now she holds the ledger that signs your death warrant." Tristan stared at Harper, raw panic seizing his features. Harper, please. You know how this business works. You're an accountant, you're smart. Tell him to let me go. I'm sorry for what I said at the Onyx Room. I was drunk, I was stupid. You look beautiful. Please." Harper stood tall, her voluptuous figure commanding the dim space. She didn't cross her arms. She didn't shrink away. The paralyzing insecurity that had haunted her for 28 years was completely gone, burned away by the fiery devotion radiating from the man beside her. "I am smart, Tristan," Harper said, her voice steady and echoing with newfound authority. "Smart enough to see the hidden routing numbers in your offshore accounts. But I was also smart enough to dig a little deeper. Dante, there is something you need to know. Something I found right before you walked into my office." Dante turned to her, his brow slightly furrowed in genuine curiosity. "What is it, Mia Bella?" Tristan wasn't just stealing to pay the triads, Harper revealed, pulling a folded flash drive from her coat pocket. She held it up, the small metal device, catching the harsh overhead lights. "I found a secondary money trail. 3 days ago, Tristan wired $500,000 to a shadow account in Chechnya. He didn't just steal from you, Dante. He hired a contract killer. The temperature in the warehouse seemed to plummet to absolute zero. Dominic stopped cleaning his knife. Dante's posture went completely rigid, his storm-grey eyes snapping toward Tristan with a lethal, terrifying intensity. "A hit," Dante whispered, the sound more terrifying than a scream. "On who?" Tristan began to hyperventilate, shaking violently against the metal chains. No, she's lying. She's a liar. She's just trying to get me killed." "On me," Harper said calmly, stepping closer to Dante. He realized I was reviewing the casino accounts. He knew I would find the missing funds, so he hired an assassin to eliminate me before I could bring the discrepancies to you. The hit was scheduled for tomorrow morning at my apartment." A low, guttural snarl ripped from Dante's chest. It was the sound of a civilized man completely losing his grip on his humanity. He closed the distance between himself and Tristan in a fraction of a second. Dante's massive hand wrapped around Tristan's throat, cutting off his frantic pleas. "You ordered a hit on my woman!" Dante hissed his face, inches from the younger man's terrified eyes. "You dared to put a price on her life." Suddenly the heavy metal doors of the warehouse shrieked open. 3 black SUVs skidded into the building, their tires squealing against the smooth concrete. Armed men poured out their weapons, raised and aimed directly at Dante and his crew. From the center vehicle stepped Carmine Falcone, the aging but utterly ruthless Don of the Falcone family. He leaned heavily on a silver-tipped cane, his eyes burning with fury. Tristan had clearly managed to get a distress message out before Dante's men had fully secured him. "Let my son go." "Moretti." Carmine barked, the sound echoing loudly off the metal walls. "You have crossed a line. You do not kidnap a made man. You do not touch my blood. Release him now, or we go to war tonight, right here on this floor." Tension suffocated the damp warehouse. Dozens of assault rifles were leveled. Red laser sights cut through the dusty air, painting crimson dots across chests. Harper felt her heart stop, but Dante did not flinch. He refused to release his iron grip on Tristan's throat. Instead, he slowly turned to look at the elder Falcone. "Carmine," Dante said smoothly, his voice eerily calm amidst the explosive standoff. "Your son is a dead man. The only question tonight is whether he dies alone, or if you and your entire crew decide to join him in hell, right now." Carmine sneered, stepping forward heavily. "He is my blood. Whatever dispute you have with him, it is handled at the commission table, not in a rat-infested warehouse." "The commission table is for men with honor," Dante replied coldly. He finally let go of Tristan's throat, allowing the young man to gasp for air. Dante reached out his hand toward Harper. She did not hesitate. She walked directly through the dangerous crossfire. Her hips swayed with a defiant confidence she had never felt before, and she placed the silver flash drive into his waiting palm. Dante tossed the drive to the floor. "Pick it up," Dante commanded. "Your precious blood has been robbing my Atlantic City casinos to pay his gambling debts. That alone buys me the right to strip his flesh." But his fatal mistake. Dante reached out, pulling Harper flush against his side, wrapping his arm securely around her waist. "He put a $500,000 contract out on my brilliant accountant, the woman who happens to be the absolute love of my life." Carmine stared at the drive. The color drained from his weathered face. He looked at his son. "Tristan," Carmine croaked with deep shame, "tell me you did not steal from the Moretti syndicate." "He was going to ruin me. Papa!" Tristan wailed, utterly shattered. "She was going to ruin me. She is nobody." Tristan's panic gave way to vicious desperation. He strained against the chains, screaming at Dante. "You are throwing away a 20-year alliance for her. Look at her. No one wants a fat girl. She is pathetic. She is—" The sudden gunshot was completely deafening. It echoed off the steel ceiling, a violent crack of thunder. Tristan's words were silenced forever. He slumped heavily forward, hanging lifeless against the heavy chains. A single dark hole rested directly between his eyes. Harper flinched, burying her face into Dante's chest. Dante slowly lowered his gold-plated pistol. Smoke curled from the barrel. He had drawn and fired in a fraction of a second. Complete silence descended upon the warehouse. Carmine Falcone stared at his dead son, his jaw trembling. The Falcone soldiers gripped their weapons, waiting for the order to fire, but Carmine slowly raised his trembling hand, signaling his men to stand down. The code of the Mafia was absolute. Stealing from an ally was a death sentence. Ordering an unsanctioned hit on an ally's protected asset was an act of war. Tristan had brought this upon himself. "The debt is settled," Carmine whispered, looking 10 years older as he leaned heavily on his cane. "My son's foolishness has cost him his life. There will be no war, Don Moretti. You have your justice." Carmine turned heavily, dragging his feet as he climbed back into his vehicle. One by one, the Falcone soldiers lowered their weapons and retreated. The massive metal doors slid shut behind them, leaving Dante Harper and Dominic alone with the grim reality of the underworld. Dante slowly holstered his weapon. He took a deep, steadying breath. The lethal killer melted away, replaced instantly by a man deeply in love. He turned to Harper, his storm-grey eyes softening with overwhelming warmth. He did not care about the blood on the floor. He did not care about his ruined suit or the grit of the dirty concrete. Right there, Dante Moretti lowered himself. He dropped heavily to the cold floor, his knee resting on the concrete. Harper gasped, hands flying to her mouth. Tears finally spilled over her thick lashes. Dante looked up at her. He stared at her full figure as if she were a divine being. He gently took her soft hand, pressing a fervent kiss to her knuckles. "Tristan was a fool," Dante said softly. His greatest mistake was failing to see the perfection standing in front of him. "You are my brilliant mind. You are my gorgeous, perfect queen. You command every single room you enter, and you command every beat of my heavy heart." Dante reached into his pocket. He withdrew a black velvet box, flipping it open. Inside sat a massive, flawless diamond. "Will you marry me?" Harper smiled brightly. "Yes." Did you love this thrilling Mafia romance? If Harper and Dante's intense story captured your heart, please hit that like button and share this video with your fellow romance readers. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more dramatic, twist-filled love stories where the underdog always wins. Ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Tell us in the comments what you thought of Dante's ultimate revenge. We will see you in the next gripping video today.